Officer Chris Wilson had always believed in justice. From the moment he joined the Ironville Police Department, he saw the badge as a symbol of fairness, a promise to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. For 5 years, he patrolled the streets of Ironville, a quiet town with hard-working families, only small crimes here and there. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other. But beneath the calm surface, a dark storm was brewing. Chief John Coakley was a legend in Ironville. He had been the police chief for over 15 years, known for his tough approach on crime and a no-nonsense attitude. He had the town's respect, and even Chris admired him. But lately, things didn't add up. Criminals with serious charges seemed to disappear from court cases, and whispers about the chief taking money started floating around the department. It was when Chris began investigating the sudden release of a known drug dealer that his suspicions grew. Antonio Delgado had been arrested with clear evidence: drugs, cash, and illegal weapons. Yet, within a week, he was walking the streets again, as if nothing had happened. The case had been closed, quietly swept away. No one at the station talked about it, but Chris couldn't let it go. He knew something wasn't right. One evening, after his shift, Chris met up with his old friend and retired detective, Martin Davis. Over coffee at a small diner, Chris laid out his concerns. Delgado had a record longer than anyone else in Ironville, Chris said, leaning forward. And now he's free. No explanation, no trial, nothing. Martin gave a slow nod. You're not wrong. There's been talk for years. Coakley is clean on the surface, but there's always been rumors about him working with some shady people. Deals being made under the table. Chris frowned. He didn't want to believe that his chief, the man who had taught him everything, could be involved in something illegal. But the evidence was piling up. Martin's word stuck with him. Deals under the table? That sounded like something too big to ignore. A few days later, Chris got his answer in a way he never expected. He was at the station late, going over reports when he heard voices coming from the chief's office. The door was cracked open, and through the thin gap, Chris saw something he never thought he would. There, sitting across from Chief Coakley, was Antonio Delgado, the very man Chris had arrested. On the desk between them was a thick envelope, and from where Chris stood, it looked like money, lots of it. Coakley slid the envelope into his drawer, leaned back, and smiled. Chris couldn't move. Everything he had believed about Chief Coakley shattered in that moment. He had always looked up to the man, trusted him like a mentor. But now, seeing him take money from a criminal, it all made sense. The missing cases, the dropped charges, the sudden releases. Coakley wasn't serving justice, he was selling it. The next day, Chris felt the weight of his discovery crushing him. He wanted to report it, but to whom? Coakley controlled everything in Ironville, including the local politicians. Going to internal affairs seemed too risky, and he didn't have enough hard evidence. All he had was what he saw through the crack in that door. He needed more if he was going to expose the chief. That night, Chris called Martin. "I think you're right. Coakley's dirty," he said quietly, as if someone could overhear. "I saw him take money from Delgado. This goes deeper than I thought." Martin didn't sound surprised. "I figured as much. Coakley has been untouchable for years, Chris. But if you're going after him, you need to be careful. You don't know how many people he's got under his thumb." Chris knew Martin was right. Coakley had allies all over the department and probably beyond. But Chris couldn't let it slide. He began working in secret, pulling records and tracking every case where criminals seemed to walk free after clear arrests. The pattern was obvious. Each of these cases had one thing in common: Coakley's signature approving their release. The more Chris dug, the more dangerous things became. Coakley was smart. He covered his tracks well, but there were cracks in his armor. One night, while combing through years of department files, Chris stumbled across a list of payments, large sums of money transferred to an offshore account linked to a company called Unforgettable Investments. Chris knew this was it. The money trail connected Coakley to Delgado and others like him. Now he just needed proof that Unforgettable Investments was a front for Coakley's dirty deals. But as soon as he found the file, it disappeared from the department system. Someone was watching. With the evidence disappearing, Chris knew he had little time. Coakley must have known someone was looking into him. He had to act fast. The next morning, Chris confronted Martin in person, showing him the fragments of evidence he had managed to print before the file vanished. "This is big," Martin said, studying the papers. "But it's not enough. You need someone from the inside to talk." That's when Chris realized Ron Jacobs, a former officer who had worked closely with Coakley before mysteriously resigning, could be the key. Ron had disappeared after leaving the force, but rumor had it he was hiding out in a rundown cabin outside of town, far from Ironville's influence. Chris drove out to find Ron, determined to get the truth. When he found him, Ron was a wreck, clearly haunted by something. After hours of hesitation, Ron finally broke. He revealed everything: the bribes, the threats, and how Coakley had forced him out after he tried to blow the whistle on the whole operation. "I wanted to come forward," Ron said. "But Coakley, he's too powerful. He's got connections everywhere. If you go after him, you'll be risking your life." But Chris had already made up his mind. With Ron's testimony and the little evidence he had left, he went to the state's attorney general, bypassing Ironville's corrupt system entirely. The case quickly gained traction. It wasn't long before a task force was assembled to investigate Coakley and the Unforgettable Investments. The raid on Coakley's office was swift and decisive. Investigators uncovered years of hidden transactions, bribes, and blackmail. Chief Coakley was arrested, and Ironville was rocked by the scandal. The man who had controlled the town for decades was finally exposed for the criminal he truly was. Chris's bravery didn't go unnoticed. He was hailed as a hero, but the cost was high. Trust in Ironville's police was shattered, and rebuilding would take years. But for Chris, it was a step toward restoring the true meaning of justice. Thank you very much for watching till the end of this story. If you enjoyed watching, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more thrilling stories. Don't hesitate to also like the video and share it with your loved ones too. Enjoy your day.